I always wake up at 5 in the morning. This habit has remained since the days when I was a judge in the Peachtree City District Court. For 43 years, I handed down sentences in this courtroom, looking down on people from my position of authority. For 43 years, I was the voice of the law in this town, where everyone knows their neighbor's name and the color of their underwear. Now I'm 74, and I'm just an old man living in a house that's too big for one person. Catherine died 3 years ago. Pancreatic cancer, which the doctors discovered too late. After her death, a void formed in my life that nothing could fill. We lived together for almost 50 years. People often say that after the death of a spouse, you begin to appreciate what you have left, your family, for example. But my son Perry is in no hurry to fill that void with his presence. Peachtree City is a small but proud town. There are 4 churches for every 10,000 residents, and they are all packed on Sundays. People come dressed in their best clothes, with Bibles under their arms and smiles that sometimes seem fake. After the service, they gather in the churchyard and discuss those who did not come. In Peachtree City, you are either one of them or the subject of gossip. I sit on the porch of my house with a cup of coffee, watching Maple Street wake up. Mrs. Brooks is already walking her pug, who leaves gifts on all the neighbors' lawns. Mr. Allison picks up the morning paper in his bathrobe and slippers. The sun is just beginning to rise, painting the sky shades of pink and orange. At moments like this, Peachtree City seems like the perfect place to live. But I know the secrets hidden behind the immaculate facades of these houses. My phone rings, and I see my son's name on the screen. Perry rarely calls, usually only when he needs something. I take a deep breath before answering. "Good morning, Perry." "Hi, Dad. Just calling to see how you are." I can hear the insincerity in his voice. My son is a good broker, but a terrible actor. "Fine. What do you need?" "Why do you always think I need something?" There is hurt in his voice, but I know my son. "Mildred and I would like to stop by tonight, just to see you." "It's Tuesday," I point out. "You never come on Tuesdays." "We're worried about you, Dad. You're all alone in that big house." Here we go again. "I'm fine, Perry. The house isn't that big. You know, Mildred and I have been talking about this. There's a great place called Sunny Hills. It's not a nursing home. It's a community for active retirees." "No," I cut him off. "You haven't even considered the possibility, Dad." "I'm not moving to a community for active retirees," I say, feeling my irritation growing. "I've lived in this house for 45 years and I'm going to die in it." Perry sighs so loudly that I can almost see him rolling his eyes. "All right, Dad, but we're still coming over tonight. Mildred is making her casserole." I wince. Mildred's casserole is somewhere between paste and concrete, but I just say, "Okay, I'll be waiting." After the call, I sit on the porch for a while longer, looking at my well-manicured lawn. The house is really big for one person. 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a large kitchen. Catherine and I bought it when Perry was still a baby, with the idea of having a large family. But we never had a second child. Every Sunday I see them at church. Perry and Mildred Quinlan, the model couple. He's in a formal suit, she's in a modest dress just below the knee. They hold hands, smile at their neighbors, and give generously to the church. Mildred heads the women's committee, and Perry helps organize charity dinners. They embody everything Peachtree City values: traditional values, piety, success. Perry is one of the brokers at South Investment Group. Not the most successful, but not the least either. Mildred works at Good News PR, which promotes religious organizations and charitable foundations. When they got married 7 years ago, the whole town came to their wedding. Catherine said at the time, "Our boy has finally settled down. Now you can retire with peace of mind." I resigned from my position as a judge a year after their wedding. By noon, the heat becomes unbearable, and I go inside. The air conditioner hums, battling the southern summer heat. I spend most of the day sorting through old photos for the album Catherine started. Here are pictures of Perry as a child, a smiling boy with front teeth. Here he is at graduation, serious and tense. Here is his wedding to Mildred. They look at each other with such love that it's hard to believe how they treat me now. We used to be close. I taught him to ride a bike, played baseball with him, helped him with his homework. But something changed when he went off to college. He came back a different person, ambitious, cold, calculating. He no longer sought my approval or advice. And then Mildred came along, and the wall between us grew even higher. At 6 o'clock in the evening, I hear the sound of a car pulling up. Perry parks his Lexus next to my old Ford, and the contrast between the cars seems symbolic. They get out of the car, Perry in a short-sleeved shirt and khaki pants, Mildred in a floral summer dress. She is carrying a ceramic casserole dish. I meet them on the porch. "Dad!" Mildred comes up first, kissing me on the cheek. She smells of expensive perfume. "You look wonderful." "Hi, Dad." Perry slaps me on the shoulder as if we were old friends rather than father and son. "How are you feeling?" "The same as when you called this morning," I reply, opening the door. "Come in." The house greets them with the coolness of air conditioning. Mildred immediately heads to the kitchen to heat up her casserole, while Perry looks around as if searching for changes since their last visit 2 months ago. "It's so spacious here," he remarks. "It must be hard to maintain such a large house." "I have Mrs. Higgins who comes twice a week," I say. "She does a wonderful job." "Still, Dad," Perry shakes his head. "It's too much for one person." I don't respond. We've discussed this dozens of times. In the kitchen, Mildred sets the table, arranging plates and cutlery. "I brought my signature chicken casserole," she announces, "and some salad." "You need to watch what you eat at your age, Ebner." "I eat fine," I protest. "I cook for myself every day." Mildred and Perry exchange glances that I know all too well. Glances that say, "Poor old man, he doesn't understand." "We're just worried about you, Dad," Mildred says, her voice sounding like a kindergarten teacher's. "You're all alone here. What if you fall or get sick?" "I have a panic button," I say, pointing to the medallion around my neck. "And I always have my phone with me." "That's not the same as having people around who can help," she insists. "Sunny Hills has nurses who are available 24 hours a day." "I'm not disabled, Mildred." My voice sharpens. "I'm perfectly capable of taking care of myself." "Of course, Dad." Perry tries to defuse the situation. "No one is saying you can't. We're just thinking about the future, planning ahead." I notice them exchanging glances again. Something is wrong. They never come on Tuesdays, and Mildred doesn't make casserole for no reason. "What's going on?" I ask directly. "Why did you really come?" "What?" "Nothing," Perry replies too quickly. "We just wanted to visit you." "The last time you came was before Easter," I say. "It's been 2 months since then, and suddenly all this concern." "Dad is very perceptive," Mildred Perry says, as if I'm not in the room. "Just like you said." "What did I say?" I ask. "That you always see right through people," Perry explains. "That quality made you a good judge." They're evading the question again. We sit down at the table, and Mildred serves us all her casserole. It looks as appetizing as cement. "How's work?" I ask Perry, deciding to change tactics. "Not bad," he replies. "We have some new clients. People want to invest in real estate now that the market is on the rise." "How about you, Mildred?" "Oh, we're very busy," she perks up. "We're working on a campaign for a new interfaith charity. A very important client." I nod, pretending to be interested. I notice that Perry checks his phone several times under the table during the conversation. Mildred also seems tense. Her smile doesn't reach her eyes. "You know, Dad," Perry says after a pause, "we were thinking, maybe you should get a full medical checkup." So that's what this is about. Now I understand what they're getting at. "Why?" I ask, even though I already know the answer. "Just as a precaution," Mildred says quickly. "At your age, it's important to get checked regularly." "I saw Dr. Baker 2 months ago," I reply. "He said I'm in great shape for my age." "Yes, but Dr. Baker..." Perry pauses, searching for the right words. "He's a bit old-fashioned. We found an excellent clinic in Atlanta. They have specialists in gerontology who can do a complete examination." "Including cognitive tests," Mildred adds. "Do you think I have dementia?" I put down my fork. "No, of course not," they reply almost simultaneously. "It's just..." Perry looks uncomfortable. "Mrs. Johnson said last week that she saw you talking to yourself on the porch." "I was reading the newspaper aloud," I reply. "It helps me remember things better." "And then you forgot to lock the front door last night," adds Mildred. "The neighbors noticed it this morning." I feel anger rising inside me. Are they watching me? Gathering information? I didn't forget to lock the door. I left it open because it was hot, and the air conditioner in the living room was malfunctioning. I closed the screen door. See? Mildred turns to Perry. He doesn't even remember. I remember perfectly well. My voice grows colder. And I'm not going to take any dementia tests just because you want to put me in a nursing home. Sunny Hills isn't a nursing home, Perry objects. It's a community for... I know what it is, I interrupt. And the answer is no. A tense silence descends on the table. Mildred is the first to break it. Ebner, we're just worried about you. You've changed since Catherine died. You've become more withdrawn, irritable. How was I supposed to change? I ask. I lost the woman I lived with for 50 years. It's been 3 years, Dad, Perry says gently. Maybe it's time to move on. I look at them both sitting across from me. My son and his wife, so pious, so proper in the eyes of society, and so fake. You know what? I say, pushing my plate away. I'm very tired today. I think we'd better finish dinner. But you've hardly touched your casserole, Mildred protests. I'm not hungry. They exchange glances again. Perry nods. Okay, Dad, we understand. Maybe another time. They get ready to leave. Mildred packs the leftover casserole into a container and puts it in the refrigerator, though I know I'll throw it away as soon as they're gone. Perry lingers in the hallway, looking at the old photos on the wall. Do you remember this day? He points to a picture of us fishing together. He's about 10 years old, holding a small perch with the proud look of someone who's caught a shark. Of course I remember, I reply. It was at Martin's Lake. You were so proud then, he says with a hint of nostalgia. You said I would be a great fisherman. You could have been anything, Perry, I say. You always had the potential. Something flashes in his eyes. Resentment, disappointment, but it quickly disappears. Okay, Dad, we'll stop by again this weekend. Think about what we said about getting checked out, okay? I don't answer, just open the door. Mildred kisses me on the cheek goodbye and they leave. I stand on the porch watching their Lexus drive down the street and disappear around the corner. Back inside, I immediately throw out Mildred's casserole. Then I go to my study and sit down at the old oak desk that has served me faithfully throughout my career. I open the drawer and take out the notebook in which I record my observations. An old judge's habit, recording the facts. Tuesday, June 23rd. Perry and Mildred arrived unannounced. They talked about medical examinations and cognitive tests. They mentioned Sunny Hills for the 3rd time in the last 2 months. They're planning something. I close the notebook and lean back in my chair. Outside it's getting dark, and the lights of Peachtree City are coming on one by one. This city has known me my whole life. I've judged its criminals, married its couples, settled its disputes. And now I'm just an old man they're trying to write off. But they don't know that the old judge is still sharp. And if my own son is plotting something against me, I'll find out what it is. After all, the truth always comes out. I've learned that in 43 years on the bench. Rain is drumming on the roof when I wake up. The clock says 6:30. I've slept longer than usual. Outside the window, Peachtree City hides beneath gray clouds, and the wet streets glisten in the dim morning light. Days like this always make me melancholy, but today I have no time for gloom. I have a plan. A week has passed since Perry and Mildred's visit. They haven't called, but I know it's just a temporary lull. They're up to something, and I need to find out what. My intuition, honed by years of courtroom experience, won't let me rest. I go down to the kitchen and make coffee and toast. The usual breakfast for a widower. Catherine always insisted on a full breakfast. Eggs, bacon, fruit salad. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day, Ebner, she used to say. Now I realize she was right, but I have no desire to cook for myself. The phone rings at 8 o'clock sharp. It's Perry, his voice cheerful, too cheerful for an early Saturday morning. Dad, Mildred and I are going to stop by today. We have some news. What news, I ask, already knowing it can't be anything good. We'll tell you when we see you. We'll be there around 2. He hangs up before I can object. Typical Perry, always making decisions without asking my opinion. I used to admire his decisiveness. Now that quality is working against me. I have 6 hours to prepare. I quickly finish breakfast, take a shower, and get dressed. I choose my best pants and shirt. Catherine always said that when you're well-dressed, you feel more confident. And I'm going to need confidence today. At 10 o'clock, I call Mildred. She doesn't answer right away, her voice sleepy. Hello? Ebner? Good morning, Mildred. Sorry for calling so early. It's okay, she yawns. Did something happen? No, nothing serious. I just wanted to ask if you and Perry could stop by the store on your way to my place. I need some medicine, and I'd rather not go out in the rain. Sure, she sounds surprised but agrees. What exactly do you need? I name a few common medicines I take for high blood pressure and vitamins. Nothing urgent, but enough to justify the call. Anything else? Mildred asks. No, that's all. Thank you. See you soon. I hang up and smile. The first part of the plan is complete. Perry and Mildred always come together, in the same car. But today, Mildred thinks I'm expecting them at 2, and I've already arranged with my neighbor, Mrs. Higgins, that she'll come by to borrow some sugar at exactly noon. Perry will have to wait until I finish talking to her, and Mildred will go to get the medicine in the meantime. I spend the time before their arrival preparing for their visit. I tidy up the living room, even though Mrs. Higgins was here just yesterday and the house is in perfect condition. I didn't offer to make lunch, so there's no need to worry about food. I just wait. At noon, as agreed, the doorbell rings. It's Mrs. Higgins, an elderly widow who lives 2 doors down from me. She's as punctual as a Swiss watch. Ebner, dear, she says as she enters, shaking her umbrella. Terrible weather, isn't it? Yes, Dorothy, just awful, I agree, taking her coat. Thank you for coming. She lowers her voice. So you really think your son is up to something? I nod. I'm sure of it. I just need time to check his phone when he leaves it unattended. Dorothy Higgins is one of the few people I trust in Peachtree City. She was Catherine's best friend, and after my wife's death, she often came to check on me. Unlike most people in our town, she's not particularly religious and doesn't like to gossip. Maybe that's why we get along so well. I'll try to keep him as long as possible, she promises. I'll tell him about my arthritis. That always takes at least half an hour. I smile. You're a true friend, Dorothy. We sit in the living room drinking tea and discussing the latest news in Peachtree City. Dorothy knows everything about everyone, although she doesn't spread the information around. At 1:30, Perry's car pulls up. I see him parking and getting out through the window. Alone. They're here, I say to Dorothy. Remember, you came in for sugar, but I didn't have any, so I offered you tea until Mildred came back from the store. I remember the legend, Ebner, she winks. It's not for nothing that I watch all those detective series. The doorbell rings and I go to open it. Perry is standing on the doorstep, wet from the rain, holding a folder with documents. Dad, he enters, shaking the drops from his hair. Terrible weather. Yes, just awful, I agree. Is Mildred with you? She went to the pharmacy, he says, hanging his raincoat on a hook in the hallway. She said you called about the medicine? Yes, thank you for agreeing to stop by. Dorothy is here. She just popped in for some sugar, but I didn't have any. We'll have some tea while we wait for Mildred. Perry looks slightly annoyed. He doesn't like it when things don't go according to plan, but he goes into the living room and greets Dorothy. Mrs. Higgins, it's good to see you. Oh, Perry, my dear. Dorothy switches into the mode of an elderly neighbor, which she has mastered to perfection. How nice of you to stop by to see your father. I was just telling him about my arthritis. The doctors say it's because of the weather. Perry smiles politely, but I see him glance discreetly at his watch. I offer him tea, and he accepts. While I go to the kitchen, he puts his phone on the coffee table and takes some papers out of a folder. Perfect. I linger in the kitchen longer than necessary, pretending to look for cookies. I hear Dorothy telling Perry about her recent visit to the doctor and new treatments for arthritis. Perry nods politely, but his voice sounds increasingly tense. Finally, his phone rings. He apologizes and goes into the hallway to answer it. Now I have my chance. I quickly return to the living room with a tray of tea and cookies. Perry's phone is on the table. Dorothy nods understandingly and starts talking louder to drown out our conversation. And then Dr. Miller says to me, Mrs. Higgins, with joints like yours, you need to move more. Can you imagine? Move more with my arthritis. I quickly grab Perry's phone. Luckily, the screen is still unlocked after the call. I open the Messenger app and quickly scan the latest messages. Most are from Mildred, discussing work issues, dinner plans, but then I see a conversation with a contact named Dr. C. I open it and scroll through the latest messages. The documents are almost ready. We just need the conclusion after the examination. When can you bring it? We're working on it. The old man is being stubborn. The sooner, the better. Once guardianship is established, the procedure will take no more than a week. I feel a chill inside. They really are planning to declare me incompetent. Once guardianship is established, those words sound like a death sentence. I quickly take a few screenshots, send them to my email, and delete any traces of my actions from my phone. Then I go to the photo gallery, quickly browsing through recent pictures. Most of them are ordinary photos of the office, documents, Mildred. But then I stumble upon a password-protected folder. It's simply named P. I don't have time to figure out the password, but the very existence of such a folder is suspicious. I hear Perry finishing his conversation in the hallway and quickly put my phone back on the table, returning to my chair. When he enters, I pretend to be engrossed in Dorothy's story. "Yes, really, very interesting," I say, nodding. Perry sits down and takes a cup of tea. "That was Mildred. She's already at the pharmacy and will be here soon." "Great," I smile. "We were just talking about new treatments for arthritis." Very informative. Perry nods, clearly not listening. He picks up his phone again and checks something. Then he puts it in his pants pocket. I won't have another chance to access it. Dorothy continues her story, while I ponder what I've just learned. Dr. S is most likely Dr. Summers, a well-known gerontologist in the area. If they really plan to get guardianship over me, they'll need his opinion. And apparently this doctor is already ready to sign all the necessary papers. All that's left is to bring me in for an examination. 20 minutes later, Mildred arrives with a bag from the pharmacy. She is surprised to see Dorothy, but quickly recovers. "Mrs. Higgins, how nice to see you." "Mildred, dear," Dorothy stands up. "I was just about to leave." "Thanks for the tea, Ebner." "You're welcome." I walk her to the door and she whispers, "Did you find anything?" "Yes," I reply just as quietly. "I'll tell you later." When I return to the living room, Perry and Mildred are sitting side by side on the sofa, leaning over a folder of documents. When I appear, they quickly close it. "What do you have there?" I ask, pretending to be merely curious. "Nothing special, Dad," Perry smiles too broadly. "Just some work documents. By the way, we have some news." "What is it?" "We made an appointment for you to see Dr. Summers next Tuesday," Mildred says with the same saccharine smile. "It's just a checkup, nothing serious." "I didn't ask you to make a doctor's appointment for me." My voice turns cold. "And I'm not going anywhere on Tuesday." "Dad, he's the best specialist in the area." Perry tries to speak calmly, but I can see the tension in his face. "Many people wait months for an appointment, and we managed to arrange it so quickly." "How did you manage that?" I ask. They exchange glances again. "Mildred has connections," Perry explains. "One of her agency's clients is acquainted with Dr. Summers." "How convenient," I remark. "But I'm not going anywhere. I already have a doctor, Dr. Baker, and he says I'm perfectly healthy." "Dr. Baker is a family doctor," Mildred objects. "Dr. Summers specializes in problems affecting older people." "Problems?" I raise an eyebrow. "I don't have any problems, Mildred, except for my son and daughter-in-law who are trying to control my life." Perry sighs and rolls his eyes. "That's exactly what we're talking about, Dad. This paranoia, it's not normal." "Paranoia?" I almost laugh. "You're making appointments for me with a doctor I don't know without my knowledge, trying to force me to move into a nursing home." "A community for active retirees," Mildred corrects me. "It doesn't matter what you call it," I cut her off. "The bottom line is, you want me to give up my home and my independence. And you call me paranoid? You're misunderstanding." Perry stands up, his voice becoming irritated. "We just want you to be safe and looked after. After Mom died, you became different." "Of course I became different." I stand up too, and we stand facing each other like boxers before a fight. "I lost the love of my life, but that doesn't mean I lost my mind." "No one is saying you lost your mind," Mildred interjects in a conciliatory tone. "It's just that everyone needs help as they get older. It's natural." "I don't need your help." I look at them both. "And I'm not going anywhere on Tuesday. That's my final word." A heavy silence hangs in the room. Perry looks at Mildred, and I see them communicating silently. Years of marriage have taught them to understand each other without words. Finally, Perry nods. "Okay, Dad. We won't push you. If you don't want to go to Dr. Summers, we'll cancel the appointment." His capitulation is too quick, and it makes me even more suspicious. Perry never gives in so easily. "Thank you," I say, still not believing their sincerity. I appreciate your understanding. No problem. Mildred smiles and hands me a bag from the pharmacy. Here are your medications. We got everything on the list. I thank her and take the bag. We spend another hour in awkward conversation about the weather, neighbors, and the latest news in Peachtree City. Perry and Mildred studiously avoid the subject of my health or Sunny Hills. Instead, they talk about their work, Perry's new clients, and a charity event that Mildred's PR agency is organizing. It's going to be a real event for Peachtree City, Mildred says enthusiastically. A charity dinner in support of a children's hospice. All the cream of society will be there. Sounds wonderful, I reply without much enthusiasm. You should come too, Dad, Perry suggests. After all, you're a former judge, a respected figure in the city. Your presence will lend weight to the event. I'll think about it, I promise, although we both know I won't go. I haven't been to events like this in a long time. After Catherine's death, I lost interest in the social life of Peachtree City. Finally, they are about to leave. Perry says they have to hurry to meet friends in the evening. I walk them to the door and Mildred kisses me on the cheek again as a farewell. Take care, Dad. We'll call you in a few days. When they leave, I immediately go to my office and turn on the computer. I need to check my email and make sure the screenshots from Perry's phone have actually arrived. There they are, 3 images clearly showing the correspondence with Dr. C. I save them in a separate folder and print them out just in case. Then I open a search engine and type in Dr. Summers, gerontologist, Peachtree City. The search results confirm my suspicions. Dr. Charles Summers, a specialist in gerontology and geriatric psychiatry. His services include capacity assessment and assistance with guardianship. I print this information out as well, but something still bothers me. Why are Perry and Mildred so insistent on declaring me incompetent? The house and savings are sufficient motive, but is there something else? And what's in that password-protected folder on Perry's phone? I remember Mildred mentioning a meeting with friends tonight. They don't usually meet with friends on Saturdays. In Peachtree City, Saturdays are for spending time with family. This meeting with friends may be just what I need to check out. I call Dorothy. She answers right away. Ebner? Well, did you find out anything interesting? Yes, and it's worse than I thought. I briefly tell her about the correspondence with Dr. Summers and the plans to place me under guardianship. But there's something else. Tonight they have some kind of meeting with friends. Could you follow them? Dorothy laughs. Ebner Quinlan, you're turning me into a real spy. Just drive by their house tonight and see what cars are parked there. That's all. Okay, she agrees. I was going to visit my sister anyway. She lives near them. I'll call you as soon as I find out anything. I thank her and hang up. Then I open my computer again and start looking for information about the laws concerning guardianship of the elderly. I need to know what I'm dealing with and how to protect myself. The rain outside intensifies and the sky grows even darker. Perfect weather for an investigation, I think with bitter irony. The old judge is back on the case, only this time I'm investigating a conspiracy against myself. And the main suspects are my own son and his wife. The tradition of hosting a summer pool party began when Catherine was still alive. Every year on the last Saturday in July, we invited friends, neighbors, and important people in town to celebrate the middle of summer. Catherine called it a social obligation. In a small town like Peachtree City, it's important to maintain a certain status. After her death, I wanted to abandon the tradition, but something stopped me. Perhaps it was a way to preserve a piece of our life together. Or maybe it was just a reluctance to let the town forget who Ebner Quinlan was. Today is July 25th, and my backyard has been transformed into the perfect setting for a summer reception. The pool sparkles with azure water, lounge chairs are arranged under large umbrellas, and tables are laden with treats prepared by Dorothy and her sister. The weather is cloudless and warm, as if on cue, a perfect summer day in Georgia. After that conversation with Dorothy 2 weeks ago, I had evidence of Perry and Mildred's double life. It turned out that their meeting with friends took place at the country house of Judge Pritchard, a man known for his strictness in the courtroom and his attendance at church every Sunday. According to Dorothy, in addition to Perry's and the judge's cars, there were also cars belonging to Mayor Henderson and several other respected citizens parked there. All of them were with their spouses. A week later, I asked Dorothy to accidentally be near that house again, and the scene repeated itself. The same cars, the same group of friends. Such meetings on Saturdays in Peachtree City could only mean one thing, something that needed to be hidden from the public. And given the moral character of this town, the options were limited. The confirmation came unexpectedly. I happened to run into Judge Pritchard's wife, Vivian, at the grocery store. We got to talking, and I casually mentioned that my son and daughter-in-law often spent time with them. Vivian became nervous and quickly changed the subject, but not before I noticed a strange look in her eyes, a mixture of guilt and fear. Given the circumstances, I had little doubt about my conclusions. Now, watching the first guests arrive at my party, I feel a strange calm. The plan is in place. The evidence has been gathered. The moment has been chosen. The old judge is ready to pass sentence. Ebner, what a beautiful day for a party. Dorothy approaches me, holding a tray of canapes. Everything is ready, and the guests are starting to arrive. Thanks for your help, Dorothy, I smile at her. I couldn't have done it without you. It's nothing, she lowers her voice. Are you sure you want to do this today? In front of everyone? Absolutely, my voice is firm. It's the only way. If I act quietly, they'll just declare me a crazy old man with paranoia. Dorothy nods understandingly. Well, then I'll be around if you need me. And don't forget, don't drink anything stronger than lemonade. You need a clear head. She leaves to greet new guests, and I remain at my post as host, welcoming each new arrival. Pastor Wilkins and his wife, the bank manager and his wife, Dr. Morgan's family, Judge Pritchard and Vivian, the latter visibly nervous when she sees me. Mayor Henderson and his wife arrive a little late, as befits a man of his status. I shake hands, smile, and thank everyone for taking the time to come. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, when most of the guests have already gathered, Perry and Mildred arrive. She is wearing a bright blue summer dress that perfectly matches the water in the pool, and he is wearing light-colored trousers and a short-sleeved shirt. They would be the perfect couple for the cover of Life in Peachtree City magazine, if such a magazine existed. Dad! Mildred comes up to me, hugging and kissing me on both cheeks. Everything looks just wonderful. You've outdone yourself this year. Thanks, Mildred, I smile, accepting her exaggerated enthusiasm. Although most of the credit goes to Dorothy. Dad, Perry shakes my hand. Great weather for a party. Yes, we're lucky, I nod. Drinks are on the table. Food will be ready in an hour. Make yourselves at home. Oh, we'll definitely help you with everything. Mildred takes my arm. I don't want you to overexert yourself. At your age, you need to conserve your energy. I notice her casting a meaningful glance at the mayor's wife, who is standing nearby, and she nods understandingly. They create the image of a caring daughter-in-law looking after her elderly father-in-law. It's a good game if you don't know the rules. The next hour passes in the usual small talk. The guests break into groups discussing the latest news in Peachtree City, who divorced whom, who bought a new car, what the city council is planning. Perry and Mildred move from group to group, returning to me from time to time to ostentatiously ask if I'm tired, if I need to sit down. I notice Judge Pritchard glancing nervously in my direction when he thinks I'm not looking. Vivian hardly leaves the drinks table, having already had 3 glasses of punch, although she is usually very moderate. The mayor also seems tense, especially when Mildred approaches him and says something in a low voice. They all sense that something is wrong, but they can't figure out what it is. At 3 o'clock, Dorothy announces that dinner is served. The guests head for the tables set in the shade of large oak trees. I sit at the head of the table, as befits the host. Perry and Mildred sit next to me, like guards watching over a prisoner. Dad looks wonderful today, doesn't he? Mildred says loudly, addressing the whole table. We've been a little worried about his health lately, but today he's just glowing. Yes, Perry agrees, although sometimes he forgets basic things. Old age is no joy, as they say. Several guests nod sympathetically. They're laying the groundwork, I realize, creating an image of an old man losing his mind so that no one will be surprised when I'm declared incompetent. I feel fine, I say loudly, and my memory is perfectly fine. For example, I remember very well that last Saturday evening, you all gathered at Judge Pritchard's house. Silence falls over the table. Vivian Pritchard nearly chokes on a piece of chicken, and Mayor Henderson slams his glass down on the table, spilling his drink. What kind of party? Asked the bank director's wife, the only one who is unaware of the events. Just a friendly get-together, Judge Pritchard replies quickly. Nothing special. Yes, Perry agrees, giving me a warning look. Just sat around and talked. What an amazing coincidence, I continue calmly. The same friendly gatherings take place every Saturday, and it's always the same group of people. Mildred laughs nervously. Dad, what are you talking about? What group of participants? You, Perry, the judge and his wife, the mayor and his wife, all such respected people in Peachtree City, all so proper and pious in public. A heavy silence hangs over the table. I see Perry and Mildred exchange glances. The mayor nervously adjusts his tie, and the judge's wife lowers her eyes. Ebner, Dorothy says softly, maybe this isn't the time or place. On the contrary, I smile. There's no better time or place. Everyone's here, the weather's beautiful. Dad, you look tired, Perry stands up. Maybe you should lie down. I'm not tired, Perry. My voice hardens. I've never been more alert than I am today. Lunch continues in a tense atmosphere. The conversation jumps from topic to topic, but no one feels comfortable. I notice Mildred whispering something in Perry's ear, and he nods. After lunch, the guests scatter around the yard. Some sit in lounge chairs by the pool, others gather in groups in the shade of the trees. I stand by the barbecue, pretending to check the coals, when Mildred approaches me. Dad, her voice sounds concerned, but I can hear the insincerity in it. Perry and I have noticed that you've been acting strange. Are you feeling unwell? I'm perfectly fine, Mildred, I reply. I just decided to spice up our boring party a little. These hints about secret meetings, she lowers her voice. People are uncomfortable. You're putting everyone in an awkward position. The truth is often unpleasant. I look her straight in the eye, especially in a town like Peachtree City, where everyone pretends to be so virtuous. What are you talking about? She looks around nervously, making sure no one can hear us. You know exactly what I'm talking about, Mildred. I smile. Just like your husband. Just like Judge Pritchard. Just like Mayor Henderson. She looks at me, and I see a mixture of fear and anger in her eyes. You need to rest, Dad. You're saying strange things. Perry was right. We've put off seeing Dr. Summers for too long. The same doctor who will help you get custody of me? I'm still smiling, but there's no warmth in my voice. The same one Perry corresponds with, calling me old man? Mildred turns pale. I don't understand what you're talking about. You understand everything, I interrupt, just like you understand what's stored in the password-protected folder on your husband's phone. The P folder. What is that, Mildred? Pritchard? Perversion? She takes a step back. You went through Perry's phone? That's invasion of privacy. And planning to have me declared incompetent behind my back isn't an invasion. My voice gets louder, and a few nearby guests turn in our direction. Did you think the old judge wouldn't figure out your little conspiracy? Perry, Mildred calls, her voice trembling. Perry, come here. My son, who was talking to the mayor, quickly comes over to us. What's going on? Your father. He's saying strange things. About some conspiracy. About your phone. Perry looks at me with concern. Dad, are you okay? Maybe we should go inside so you can rest. I don't need to rest, Perry. I feel the anger that has been building up for weeks beginning to spill out. I need you to stop your little plan to take my property. What are you talking about? Perry pretends to be stunned, but I see panic in his eyes. What plan? The one you've been discussing with Dr. Summers. I no longer try to speak quietly, and more guests turn in our direction. After the guardianship is finalized, the procedure will take no more than a week. Remember those words? Perry turns pale. You read my messages? And you planned to have me declared insane so you could take my house, I almost shout. Which is worse, in your opinion? A crowd is gathering around us. I see the shocked faces of Pastor Wilkins and his wife, the tense looks of Judge Pritchard and Mayor Henderson, the curiosity of the other guests. Ebner, calm down. Dorothy tries to take control of the situation. Let's all cool down a bit. No, Dorothy, I shake my head. It's time for everyone to know the truth. That my son and his wife are not only planning to have me declared incompetent, but are also leading a double life, hosting swinger parties every Saturday with other respected residents of our town. A shocked gasp ripples through the crowd. Pastor Wilkins recoils as if from a leper. The bank manager's wife covers her mouth with her hand. Mayor Henderson starts muttering something about slander and defamation. This is absurd. Mildred tries to salvage the situation. Dad's just not himself. Lately, we've noticed signs of dementia. Dementia? I laugh. So severe that I was able to find out what you do every Saturday night? So severe that I found your correspondence with the doctor? The situation is heating up. Perry grabs my arm. Dad, stop. You're only making it worse. I pull away. Don't touch me. You betrayed me, Perry. You betrayed your mother's memory. Mildred moves closer, her face contorted with a mixture of anger and fear. Look at him. He's acting like a madman. That's exactly why we're worried about his condition. She turns to the guests. Ebner is just confused. He's making up conspiracies, accusing respected people. These are clear signs of age-related cognitive impairment. I'm not confused, my voice is firm, and I have proof. Screenshots of Perry's correspondence with Dr. Summers. Photos of cars at Judge Pritchard's house every Saturday night. Judge Pritchard steps forward. Ebner, these are serious accusations. If you don't have real evidence... Oh, I do have it, Richard, I turn to him, and I'm ready to show it to everyone, including your wife Vivian, who seems to already have an idea about your Saturday entertainment. Vivian Pritchard turns pale and grabs the nearest chair for support. We are standing at the very edge of the pool. The tension reaches its peak. The guests are talking among themselves. Some are already starting to leave. Dad, Mildred's voice becomes sickly sweet. You've overheated in the sun. Let me help you cool off. And before I can react, she pushes me hard with both hands on my chest. I lose my balance and fall into the pool, fully clothed. The cold water envelops me, and for a second I am lost in space, not knowing which way is up and which way is down. Cool off, old man, Mildred shouts, her voice sounding almost hysterical. Perry starts laughing, nervously, unnaturally. A few guests join in, but most look on in horror. I surface, spitting out water. My clothes are wet and heavy, pulling me down. I grab the edge of the pool and struggle to get out. Water streams off me, my shoes squelch. Dorothy rushes to me with a towel. Ebner, are you all right? I push her hand away and slowly straighten up to my full height. Despite my wet clothes and gray hair plastered to my forehead, I feel that I have never looked more imposing. 43 years in the courtroom have taught me to maintain my posture and control my voice. Thank you for your concern, Mildred. My voice sounds surprisingly calm, and that frightens them more than a shout. But you miscalculated. Did you think this would make me look pathetic? Or did you hope that at my age, falling into the pool would give me a heart attack? Too bad. Everyone is looking at us. Perry stops laughing, realizing that the situation is out of control. Dad, it was just a joke, he tries to explain. Mildred didn't mean... Shut up, Perry, I cut him off, and he falls silent like an obedient schoolboy. I want everyone here to know the truth. My son and his wife planned to have me declared incompetent so they could gain control of my estate. I have proof, their correspondence with Dr. Summers, which I found on Perry's phone. I turn to the other guests, but that's not all. Every Saturday night, Perry and Mildred, along with Judge Pritchard, Mayor Henderson, and their wives, gather at the judge's country house for swingers parties. A shocked whisper ripples through the crowd. Pastor Wilkins crosses himself. His wife looks as if she is about to faint. Yes, I continue, not letting anyone interrupt. The very same people who sit in the front row of the church every Sunday. The very ones who shout the loudest about morality and family values. They indulge in the very sin they love to accuse others of. That's a lie, Mayor Henderson shouts. Slander. I have photos of your cars at the judge's house, Mayor. I turn to him. Every Saturday at the same time, and I have witness testimony. I point to Dorothy. Mrs. Higgins can confirm it. She saw it with her own eyes. Dorothy nods uncertainly. She didn't expect me to drag her in this deep, but she doesn't let me down. And all this for control of my house and money? I look at Perry and Mildred. You hoped that once I was declared incompetent, you could continue your double life unhindered. Well, now the whole town knows your secret. Mildred starts to cry, or pretends to cry. Perry stands pale, unable to utter a word. Judge Pritchard and Mayor Henderson exchange panicked glances. I want you all to leave, I say, addressing all the guests. The party's over. So is your little game, I say, addressing Perry and Mildred. The guests begin to leave, some surreptitiously, some openly indignant. Pastor Wilkins comes up to me and puts his hand on my shoulder. Ebner, I will pray for you and your family. You'd better pray for this hypocritical town, Thomas, I reply. It needs your prayers much more than I do. Perry steps forward. Dad, you don't understand. I understand enough, I interrupt him, and I want you both to leave my house immediately. You are no longer my son, Perry. And you, I turn to Mildred, are no longer my daughter-in-law. You can't just disown us. Mildred shouts, her fake tears replaced by real anger. I can, and I am. My voice is as cold as the water in the pool. Get out of my house, now. Perry takes Mildred by the hand. Let's go, dear. There's no point in arguing right now. You'll regret this, Mildred hisses as she walks past me. The whole town will know you've lost your mind. The whole town already knows the truth about you, I reply. And that's much worse. They leave and I remain standing by the pool, wet and tired but strangely satisfied. Dorothy comes up to me and throws a dry towel over my shoulders. Are you okay? Yes, I nod. For the first time in a long time, I'm really okay. What now? She asks. Now. I look at the empty yard where there were so many people just a moment ago. Now the real storm will begin. The morning after the pool party was quiet. Too quiet. Usually on Sundays, Peachtree City is filled with the ringing of church bells and the noise of cars rushing to morning service. Today, even the birds seem to have decided to keep quiet. I woke up with the first rays of the sun, my muscles aching from yesterday's fall into the pool. Age was finally catching up with me, but the physical pain paled in comparison to the emotional devastation. I had won the battle, but at what cost? Yesterday, after the last guests had left, Dorothy helped me clean up the party. We worked in silence. What else could we say after such a scandal? When the cleaning was done, she just hugged me and whispered, "You did the right thing, Ebner, but be prepared. Tomorrow all hell will break loose." And now that tomorrow has arrived. I'm sitting on the porch with a cup of coffee, waiting for the storm that is sure to break. The phone starts ringing at 9 o'clock sharp. It's Dorothy. "Ebner, how are you?" "Alive," I reply. "What's going on in town?" "You won't believe it," she says excitedly. "Pastor Wilkins' church is half empty. None of the people you exposed yesterday showed up. Not the judge, not the mayor, not Perry and Mildred." "What are people saying?" "That's all they're talking about." Dorothy lowers her voice to a whisper. "Half of them think you've lost your mind, and the other half are convinced you've uncovered the truth." Eileen Carter from the grocery store said she'd long suspected something like this about Judge Pritchard. He always acted so righteous. I nod, even though she can't see me. Typical Peachtree City. The town always splits into two camps whenever there's a scandal. "What about Perry and Mildred?" "No word yet, but Sarah, my niece, works at the same PR agency as Mildred. She says there's an emergency board meeting scheduled for 10 in the morning. Can you imagine? On a Sunday." I thanked Dorothy for the information and promised to keep her posted. After the call, I checked my email. There are already several messages from people who were at the party. Some express support, others condemnation. Pastor Wilkins writes that he would like to meet with me personally for a spiritual conversation. The bank director's wife thanks me for opening her eyes to the true face of the city's elite. But the most important letter is from Howard Baker, my longtime friend and lawyer. He writes briefly, "Ebner, whatever you did yesterday, we need to talk. I'll be at your place at 2. At 11 o'clock, there is a knock at the door. I open it and see Perry, alone without Mildred. He looks haggard with dark circles under his eyes. "May I come in?" he asks quietly. I step back silently, letting him into the house. We walk into the living room and sit down across from each other, like strangers. "Why did you do it, Dad?" he finally asks. "Why did you ruin our lives?" "I ruined them." My voice sounds tired, without anger. "I didn't plan to have you declared incompetent. I wasn't the one leading a double life." "You don't understand," Perry rubs his face with his hands. "What you said yesterday, it could have been handled differently, privately." "Of course," I nod. "That's why I tried to talk to you earlier. But you and Mildred were too busy planning how to send me to Sunny Hills." "It was Mildred's idea." Perry lowers his head. "The home and the guardianship. She convinced me it would be better for everyone, that you couldn't live alone anymore. And I believe it was her idea, I say. But you agreed. That makes you just as guilty. Perry is silent for a moment, then looks up. I've been suspended from work. Temporarily, they said, until the circumstances are clarified. I'm not surprised. The Southern Investment Group has always been known for its conservatism. They won't tolerate a scandal like this. And Mildred was fired. This morning. Over the phone. They didn't even let her pick up her things from the office. I don't feel any satisfaction from his words. Only emptiness. I'm sorry, I say, and I mean it. I didn't want it to go this far, but you left me no choice. There's always a choice, Perry objects. You could have just talked to me. I tried, many times, but you wouldn't listen. You both thought I was an old man who didn't know what was going on anymore. Perry lowers his head. I came to ask you to take back what you said yesterday, to say you were wrong, that it was a misunderstanding. I look at my son, the only child Catherine and I ever loved, and all I feel is exhaustion. I'm not going to lie, Perry. I have proof, screenshots, photos. Everything I said yesterday is true. These meetings, he stammers, they're not what you think. Really? I raise an eyebrow. Then what are they? Perry is silent, unable to find a convincing explanation. You see, I say, even now you can't be honest, even when everything is out in the open. Mildred says she's going to sue you, Perry blurts out, for slander and something else. I don't remember. Let her sue, I shrug. I'm a former judge, Perry. I know the law better than she does, and I didn't say anything I couldn't prove. She's furious, Dad. I've never seen her like this. She says you've destroyed everything we've built over the years. What exactly have you been building? I ask. Lies, hypocrisy? I remember what you were like as a child, Perry. Honest, open. What happened to you? Life happened, he replies bitterly. Not everyone can afford to be as straightforward as you are. We fall silent again. Outside, rain begins to fall, drumming on the porch roof. What now? Perry finally asks. Mildred and I are disgraced. Our careers are in jeopardy. Are you happy? No, I answer honestly. I don't enjoy the fact that my only son turned out to be not the person I raised him to be. But I defended myself, and maybe I saved you from an even greater sin. Sin? Perry almost laughs. Now you sound like Pastor Wilkins. Since when do you care about sin? I'm not talking about what you did at those parties, I explain. That's your business. I'm talking about what you plan to do to me. Take away my freedom, my dignity, my home. That would have been a real sin, Perry. He is silent, staring at the floor. When he looks up, there are tears in his eyes. I didn't want that, Dad. I really didn't. It's just, things got out of hand and I couldn't stop. You could have stopped any time, I say, my voice softening. At any moment. Perry wipes his eyes. What do I do now? Where should I go? That's up to you. You're a grown man. Mildred wants to leave Peachtree City. She says we can't live here anymore. Maybe she's right, I agree. Small towns have long memories. What about you? Perry asks. Are you leaving too? No, this is my home. I've lived here almost my entire life, and your mother is buried here. I'm staying. Even if everyone thinks you're a crazy old man who destroyed his own son's family? Even then, I nod. I know the truth, and enough people know it too. Perry stands up. I have to go. Mildred is waiting. I get up too. Tell her I won't stand in the way of your departure, and I won't make a fuss about your meetings if you leave me alone. That sounds like a threat. It's an offer of peace, Perry, the only one I can make. He nods and heads for the door. At the threshold, he turns around. You know, Dad, despite everything, I've always respected you, your principles, your straightforwardness, even when it was inconvenient. And I've always loved you, I reply, even now. He leaves without saying another word. I watch his car drive away down the street and feel a strange sense of relief. It's as if a long illness has finally receded, leaving behind weakness, but also hope for recovery. At 2 o'clock, Howard Baker arrives. We've known each other for over 40 years, since we were both just starting out. Me as a judge, him as a lawyer. He's one of the few people I trust completely. Well, you put on quite a show, he says, taking off his jacket and settling into a chair. The whole town is buzzing. I heard, I reply. Perry came by this morning. And what did he say? That he's been suspended from work and Mildred has been fired, and that she wants to sue me. Howard snorts. Let her try. She doesn't stand a chance, and any lawyer will tell her that. I think so too, but Mildred has always been impulsive. That's not the point right now. Howard leans forward. Ebner, do you realize you've upset the most influential people in town? The judge, the mayor? This is no joke. I know, I nod, but I had no choice. They were planning to have me declared incompetent. And you can prove that? Howard asks. I go to the computer and show him the screenshots from Perry's phone. Howard studies them carefully, his face becoming serious. Yes, this is serious, he finally says, and it's enough to refute any accusations of slander. What about the other part? I ask. The swingers' parties? That's more complicated, Howard ponders. You only have the photos of the cars and Dorothy's testimony. That's circumstantial evidence. But combined with their reaction at the party, it's more than convincing. I agree, Howard nods. In any case, I'm on your side if it goes to court. Thanks, buddy, I smile. Although I don't think it will come to that. Mildred values her reputation too much to stir up even more scandal. We discuss the legal details for a while longer. Then Howard leaves, promising to keep me informed if he hears anything important. In the evening, Dorothy calls. She's excited. Ebner, did you hear? The PR agency has officially announced Mildred's dismissal. They released a press release citing inconsistency with corporate values and ethics. It's practically an admission that everything you said is true. What about the others? I ask. The judge, the mayor? There is silence for now, but it's the only thing people are talking about in town. Elizabeth, the owner of the cafe on the main square, said she saw Judge Pritchard's wife leaving the office of Simmons, the lawyer, the one who handles divorces. That was to be expected, I remark. Vivian always struck me as a woman who wouldn't tolerate such humiliation. And they say Mayor Henderson has canceled all his meetings for the coming week, allegedly due to health problems. I listen to the news Dorothy brings me and realize that the ripples from my expose are spreading further and further, affecting more and more people. The whole town is in turmoil. Towards evening, I receive another unexpected message from Pastor Wilkins. He writes that he would like to meet with me in person to discuss the moral climate in our community. I agree. The meeting is set for tomorrow. Night falls, but I can't sleep. I sit in my office looking through old photos. Catherine, little Perry, our family holidays. How did we get to this point? When did it all start to fall apart? The ringing of the phone interrupts my thoughts. It's Mildred calling, for the first time since the exposure. Are you satisfied? Her voice trembles with rage. You destroyed my career, my reputation, my whole life. Mildred, I try to speak calmly. You did all this yourself. I just revealed the truth. What truth? She almost shouts. What happens in our private life should not have become public knowledge? And what you planned for me should have remained a secret. We wanted what was best for you, she objects. You're getting older. You need help. And the house is too big for one person. Don't lie to me now, my voice hardens. You wanted to take my property, nothing more. Mildred is silent for a few seconds, then says quietly, threateningly, You'll regret this, Ebner. I swear you'll regret it. I already regret it, I answer honestly. I regret that my son chose a woman like you. I regret that I didn't notice it sooner. We're leaving, she says after a pause. Leaving this damn town, and you'll never see your son again. It's his choice, I say, trying to keep my voice steady. I won't hold him back. You're a cruel, cold man, Mildred hisses. Now I understand why Perry was always afraid of you. Afraid? I'm surprised. My son was never afraid of me. You don't know anything about him. Her voice is full of contempt. You were too busy with your precious career to notice your own child. These words hurt more than I expected. There is some truth in them. I was often away at work when Perry was little. But does that justify their actions? If you're only calling to insult me, Mildred, then this conversation is over, I say wearily. No, I'm calling to say you won. Her voice suddenly becomes calm, and that scares me more than her shouting. You won the battle. But remember, the war isn't over yet. She hangs up, leaving me with an unpleasant feeling. I know Mildred well enough to understand that these are not empty threats. She is not one to give up easily. The next morning brings new news. The local newspaper, the Peachtree Herald, comes out with a huge headline. Scandal in high society. Former judge exposes the secret life of the city's elite. I read the article, cringing at some of the exaggerations and distortions. But overall, the journalist got the gist of the story right. The phone rings incessantly. Journalists from neighboring cities, old colleagues, just curious people. Everyone wants to hear my version of events. I refuse to comment, citing fatigue and unwillingness to inflame the scandal even more. At noon, Pastor Wilkins arrives. He looks tired but carries himself with dignity. Ebner, he says, sitting down in an armchair in the living room, I'm not here to judge, but to understand. Understand what, Thomas? I ask. Why I revealed the truth, or why respected members of your congregation were leading double lives. The pastor sighs. Both, I suppose. It shook our community to its core. Sometimes a shake-up is necessary, I remark, to see what lies behind the pious facades. But was this the only way, he asks? Public humiliation, broken families. They chose their own path, Thomas, and they were going to destroy me, declare me incompetent, take away my house, lock me up in Sunny Hills. What would you have done in my place? The pastor thinks for a moment. I don't know. I want to believe I would have found a more peaceful solution. Maybe, I agree. You've always been a better person than me. We talk for about another hour. The pastor doesn't try to condemn me or defend the others involved in the scandal. He just listens, occasionally asking questions, trying to understand the motives of all sides. When he leaves, I feel a strange sense of relief, as if I have received absolution, even though he never once mentioned forgiveness or repentance. In the evening, Dorothy comes in with dinner, macaroni casserole and salad. We sit on the porch watching the sunset and discussing the latest news. The Southern Investment Group has officially suspended Perry, she reports, temporarily as they say, but everyone knows it's the end. They can't afford a scandal like this. What about the judge and the mayor? Silence. No official statements. But there are rumors that the governor called Mayor Henderson, and the conversation was not pleasant. I nod, feeling no satisfaction from this news, only fatigue and a strange emptiness. What about Perry and Mildred? I ask. Are they really leaving? According to Sarah, Mildred has already taken her things from the office, and they've put the house up for sale. So yes, it looks like they're serious about leaving. The news hits me harder than I expected. It's one thing to know your son is angry with you, but it's another to realize he's leaving, possibly for good. Do you regret it? Dorothy asked quietly. What exactly? That I revealed their secret, that all this happened. I paused for a moment, looking at the pinkening sky. No, I don't regret it. They left me no choice. But I regret that it came to this, that my son has become the kind of person who is capable of betraying his own father. Dorothy puts her hand on my shoulder. You did what you had to do. You protected yourself. Yes, I agree. But at what cost? We sit in silence, watching the sun disappear behind the horizon. The day is ending, but I know that the consequences of my revelation will be felt for a long time to come. For the town, for Perry and Mildred, for myself. I won the battle. I saved myself from their plans. But now, sitting on the porch of a house that has become even emptier, I can't help but think of Mildred's words. You won the battle, but the war isn't over yet. August in Peachtree City has always been the hottest month. The hot air shimmers above the asphalt. The leaves on the trees hang lifelessly, not moving even with the slightest breeze. The locals hide in their homes, seeking refuge in air conditioning and cold iced tea. The streets are empty, and the city seems to be frozen in a lethargic sleep. 3 weeks have passed since that memorable day when I revealed the secret life of my son and his wife to the whole town. 3 weeks that changed not only their fate, but mine as well. I have become both a hero and a pariah, depending on who you talk to. Some admire my courage, others condemn me for publicly humiliating my own family. I sit on the porch of my house, watching the occasional passerby. I haven't seen Perry in almost 4 weeks. He hasn't come by or called since our last conversation. The only information I have about what is happening in his life comes from Dorothy, who remains my faithful link to the city. The phone rings. Dorothy is on the line, and I can hear the excitement in her voice. Ebner, you won't believe it. Mildred has filed for divorce. I'm not surprised, but I still feel a twinge in my heart. When? Yesterday. Sarah saw her leaving Simmons' office with the papers. And this morning at Elizabeth's cafe, that's all anyone was talking about. How's Perry? I ask, trying to keep my voice steady. No one's seen him in a few days. They say he moved to a motel on the outskirts. The Blue Pine, you know? I know the place. A cheap motel where mostly truckers and random tourists who've lost their way stay. Not the kind of place a respected investment broker would live. But of course, Perry isn't a broker anymore. Anything else? I ask. Judge Pritchard resigned, Dorothy reports. Officially, it's for health reasons. But everyone knows the real reason. Vivian left him right after the scandal, taking half his assets with her. They say she went to live with her sister in Florida. I nod, even though Dorothy can't see me. Justice has been served, but there is no joy. Only bitterness that lives have been ruined. Not just Perry and Mildred's, but also those of other people affected by the scandal. What about the mayor? I ask. He's hanging on for now, but his approval rating has plummeted. If he doesn't resign, he'll definitely lose the next election. After talking to Dorothy, I sit on the porch for a long time, thinking. Evening is falling, and the air is getting a little cooler. Clouds are rolling in from the south. There may be a thunderstorm. I hope for rain. It would wash away the heaviness that hangs over the city and over me. The next morning, I decide to take the step I've been putting off all these weeks. I get in the car and drive to the Blue Pine Motel. I need to see Perry, talk to him. Perhaps now that the initial shock and anger have passed, we can find some understanding. The motel looks even more dreary than I remembered. Peeling paint on the walls, a faded sign, an empty parking lot with cracked asphalt. Only 2 cars, an old pickup truck, and a beat-up Honda I don't recognize. Perry's Lexus is nowhere to be seen. I walk into the tiny reception area where a heavy-set middle-aged woman sits behind the counter, flipping through a magazine. Good morning, I say. I'm looking for my son, Perry Quinlan. I was told he was staying here. The woman looks up and I see a flicker of recognition in her eyes. You're Judge Quinlan, she says without asking, the one who caused a scene at the party. That's me, I agree. Is Perry here? He was. She closes the magazine. He checked out 3 days ago. Didn't say where he was going. Did he leave an address? A phone number? No, sir. He just paid and left. He didn't look very well, to be honest. I thank her and leave. I stand in the parking lot, not knowing what to do next. Perry disappeared without telling anyone where he was going. Not even me, his father. I decide to drive to their house. Maybe I'll find some clues there. But as I approach the familiar street, I see a large "For Sale" sign on the lawn in front of the house. The windows are dark. The blinds are down. No signs of life. I stop across the street and stare for a long time at the house where my son's family lived until recently. It's a beautiful colonial-style house with white columns and a well-kept lawn. They bought it 5 years ago, and Mildred spent a fortune on renovations and furnishings. Now it stands empty, with a "For Sale" sign, like a silent rebuke of my actions. In the evening, I talk to Dorothy again. She confirms that no one has seen Perry in the last few days. What about Mildred? I ask. Is she still in town? No, she's gone to her parents' house in Savannah, according to Sarah. She took all her things and said she'd never come back to this damn little town. What about their house? It's on the market for well below market value. They're clearly in a hurry to get rid of it. I sigh. Everything is happening just as Mildred predicted. They are disappearing from my life, perhaps forever. Didn't you think of calling him? Dorothy asks. I did call. His phone is disconnected. Maybe he'll call you when he's ready. She tries to comfort me. Maybe, I agree, but I don't believe it. Another week goes by. I return to my usual routine, reading, walking, sometimes playing chess with Howard. But everything seems empty and meaningless. I won the battle, but lost the little I had left, my family. On Wednesday, as I'm having breakfast on the porch, Howard arrives. His face is serious. What's wrong? I ask, sensing that the news won't be good. Jim Brooks just called me, he says, sitting down next to me. Jim Brooks is the police chief of Peachtree City, and we've known each other for a long time. Perry was in an accident. I feel a chill inside. How serious is it? Not fatal, but pretty bad. He crashed his car on a mountain road in North Carolina. He was drunk. Is he in the hospital? Yes, in Asheville. He had surgery, broken ribs, a broken leg, a concussion. But the doctors say he'll live. I breathe a sigh of relief. When did it happen? Last night. The police found your number in his phone as an emergency contact. Without hesitation, I decide, I have to go see him. Are you sure? Howard looks at me doubtfully. After everything that's happened? He's my son, Howard, my only child. Whatever he did, I can't leave him alone at a time like this. Howard nods. I'll go with you. It's a long drive. You shouldn't drive alone. I squeeze his hand gratefully. Thank you, my friend. An hour later, we're on our way. The drive to Asheville takes about 5 hours, and we are silent for most of the way. I look out the window at the passing scenery and think about my son, who is now lying in the hospital, wounded and alone. When we finally arrive at the hospital, it is already evening. A nurse shows us to Perry's room. He is lying with his eyes closed, pale, his head bandaged and his leg in a cast. An IV is attached to his arm, and monitors beep quietly nearby. Hearing our footsteps, he opens his eyes. Dad? His voice is hoarse and weak. You came. Of course I did, I say, moving closer and taking his hand. As soon as I found out. I didn't think you'd want to see me, he says, tears glistening in his eyes. After everything, you're my son, Perry, I say, squeezing his hand. No matter what happened between us. Howard tactfully leaves the room, leaving us alone. Mildred filed for divorce, Perry says after a pause. I heard. I nod. I'm sorry. Don't be, he smiles weakly. It's for the best. Our marriage was a mistake from the start. Why do you think that? We never really loved each other, Perry admits. It was a convenient union. She was ambitious and beautiful. I had status and prospects. We were a good match, on paper. What about your meetings? I ask cautiously. Perry sighs. It was her idea, a way to make useful connections, to gain influence. I went along with it because I don't know why. Maybe I was flattered by the attention of such important people. Maybe I was just weak. What about the other couples? The judge? The mayor? Everyone had their reasons, Perry says. The judge and his wife had been living like strangers for a long time. The mayor, he has his own skeletons in the closet. He falls silent, and I don't press him for more. We sit in silence for a while, only the beeping of the instruments breaking the quiet. What were you doing in North Carolina? I finally ask. Just driving, Perry replies, wherever my eyes took me. I wanted to start over somewhere where no one knew me. And now? I don't know, he says, staring at the ceiling. The doctors say I'll have to stay here for at least 2 weeks, then rehab, and then, I don't know. I make a snap decision. You can come home. To me. Perry turns his head, his eyes filled with disbelief. After everything Mildred and I planned to do, after all the accusations? That's in the past, I say. You're my son. There's enough room for both of us in the house. I'm not sure I can go back to Peachtree City, he admits. Everyone will know. People forget, I shrug, especially when a new scandal comes along, and in a small town like that, it happens regularly. Perry smiles weakly. You've always been an optimist, Dad. A realist, I correct him. Just a realist. I stay with him until the end of the visit, and we talk about simple things, the weather, the books we're reading, news from Peachtree City. We don't touch on painful topics, Mildred, the scandal, his drinking. There will be time for that later. When the nurse says visiting hours are over, I promise to come back tomorrow. Perry nods, and I see gratitude in his eyes, and something else I can't quite identify. Hope, perhaps? Howard and I stay at a small motel near the hospital. We have dinner at a nearby cafe, discussing the situation. Do you really want him back in your house? Howard asks, looking at me intently. After what he planned? He's my son, I repeat, and right now he needs help. What if? Howard doesn't finish his sentence, but I understand what he's thinking. What if it's a trap? A new plan? I shake my head. You didn't see his eyes, Howard. He's broken. He doesn't even have the strength to be angry, let alone plot a new conspiracy. I hope you're right. Howard doesn't look convinced. But be careful, I promise. Even though deep down, I'm sure there's no danger. My son is broken, both physically and mentally. The only thing he needs right now is support. We're spending 3 more days in Asheville. I visit Perry twice a day, and with each conversation, I see him becoming more open, more like the boy I remember. He talks about his life with Mildred, his disappointment with his work, the emptiness he has felt in recent years. I listen without judgment, understanding that he needs to talk. On the 3rd day, as we're about to leave, Perry asked me, "Do you really want me to come back to your house? After everything?" "Yes," I reply without hesitation. "When you're better, come on over. Your room will be waiting for you." "Thank you, Dad," his voice trembles. "I don't deserve it." "Maybe," I agree. "But you're not getting it because you deserve it. Because I'm your father, and I always will be." On the way home, Howard expresses his doubts again. "Are you sure you're doing the right thing? Perry and Mildred have caused you so much pain." "Perry, yes," I nod. "But now he's suffering himself. And if I turn my back on him now, when he needs me, how am I any better?" Howard doesn't argue, but I can see he's not entirely convinced. Back in Peachtree City, I tell Dorothy about Perry's condition and my offer. To my surprise, she is completely supportive. "You're doing the right thing, Ebner," she says. "He's your son, and he needs you now more than ever." Another 2 weeks pass. I am in constant contact with Perry, monitoring his recovery. He says the doctors are pleased with his progress and will discharge him soon. We agree that I will come and pick him up to take him home. Meanwhile, life in Peachtree City is beginning to return to normal. The scandal is gradually forgotten, replaced by new gossip. Judge Pritchard has left town, and his house is also up for sale. Mayor Henderson has announced that he will not be running for re-election, citing a desire to spend more time with his family. Perry and Mildred's house has not yet been sold. Not many new people move to a small town like Peachtree City. I am preparing the house for Perry's return. I am cleaning his old room, which has been untouched for many years. I buy the foods he loved as a child. I try to create a home where he will feel safe. One evening, sitting on the porch watching the sunset, I reflect on how my life has changed over the past few weeks. I started out fighting for my independence, for the right to control my own life. I ended up becoming a guardian again for my adult son, who lost everything: his wife, his job, his reputation, almost his life. There is a bitter irony in this. I saved myself from their plans, but I destroyed their lives. And now with the dust settled, I see how high the price of my victory was. My son is broken, his marriage is ruined, his career is over. His ex-wife left, cursing me and him. People who were once their friends turned away, fearing their own exposure. I got what I wanted: freedom, independence, justice. But looking at the ruins of what was once my son's life, I wonder, was it worth it? The city has changed too. Behind the facade of respectability, Peachtree City has always been hypocritical. The people who shout the loudest about morality often sin in secret. My exposure only confirmed what many suspected, but were afraid to say out loud. And now that some of the pillars of society have fallen, the rest cling even more tightly to their ostensible righteousness, fearing that their secrets might also be revealed. A phone call interrupts my thoughts. It's Perry. "Dad?" His voice sounds excited. "The doctors say they'll discharge me on Friday. Do you still want me to come see you?" "Of course," I reply without hesitation. "I'll come pick you up." "Thank you," he says, relief evident in his voice. I don't know what I would have done without you." After the call, I sit on the porch for a long time, watching the last rays of sunlight disappear over the horizon. I think about the past, the future, the price we've all paid. I protected myself but lost what was left of my family. Now as I try to rebuild these ruins, I'm not sure we can build something lasting. Too much pain, too much betrayal, too many bitter words have been spoken, but I have to try, for Perry's sake, for my own sake, for the memory of Catherine, who always believed that truth and love would prevail in the end. Maybe she was right. Maybe after all the storms there will be calm. Maybe Perry and I can start over, build something new on the ruins of the old, not perfect, but real. For now I sit on the porch of my house in the city that has known me all my life and watch as night falls. Tomorrow will be a new day, and we will face it together.